Welcome to the Life After 50 show, helping you navigate the second half of your life. Today's show is sponsored by Find Houston Senior Care, your one-stop shop for everything senior care and senior living in the greater Houston area. Visit findhoustonseniorcare.com today. And now, here's your host, Catherine Watson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Life After 50 show. I'm here today with Kristen Reed, and we have got a great program for you, something that I really love. We're going to be talking about technology. And anybody that knows me knows I'm kind of a tech geek. I love technology. What I love is the opportunity that it allows people who have disabilities, people, seniors, family members to access help and information and resources that they wouldn't have been able to without it. I mean, I look back, Kristen, on when I was caring for my parents back in the Dad died in 2005, my mom in 2011. Gosh, if they would have had some of the tools that they have now, it could have made such a difference in their lives. I mean, it really could have. So I'm glad that the tools are here, and I'm glad that you're here because your company is amazing and helps people to really utilize this technology. And so, Kristen, if you would take just a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and why you do what you do.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. I am so excited to be here because, like you, I'm very passionate about technology. So I am the co-founder of something called BridgingApps.org, which is a website and it's an in-person program, part of Easter Seals Greater Houston. And so Easter Seals nationally is the largest provider of disability services outside of the government. So we are in many major cities, most communities, serving people with disabilities, military families, veterans, caregivers. So we just do a lot of work around that. So we are part of Easter Seals. And what we do is we look at different mobile technologies and apps and how they can help improve people's lives. I'm the parent of a child who is now 17. He was born with Down syndrome. He has a diagnosis of autism, and he's got a visual impairment. So he's got a lot going on. And basically, we started Bridging Apps. I helped to start Bridging Apps to help support him and find solutions for him. So it was a very selfish reason, but I wanted to share what I was learning. And we wanted to share that out to the greater community. And so we've kind of learned by doing and started with young children, and many of the same solutions and apps and devices and features that we get excited about are appropriate for adults, older adults, really for lots of different people. There are lots of choices today. So that's a little bit about what we do. We're a nonprofit. We try to keep as many of our services as free as possible. And because we're online, if you have access to the internet, you have a smartphone, you have a tablet, you can engage with our information.
I love it. I love it. And when I went to the Bridging Apps website, and I'm going to put it up in a little while, I was absolutely blown away. It is brilliantly put together. It is easy to navigate, and it has so many fabulous resources. I'm just really excited about this. I didn't know about you. I'm glad I found you, and I'm glad we're able to get this information out to people that it can help. So thank you again for being on the show today. And let me just mention, Christian has an associate, Amy, who will be at the caregiver conference that we're getting ready to have this next Friday on the 12th of March. So I'll put up some information about that at the end of the show as well. So you want to sign up for that and get more information. But Christian, let's talk about this technology thing, because I know over the last year, people have gotten more comfortable with it, some more than others, but it's very confusing for a lot of people. The words, just, talking about AI and speech to text. It sounds like a foreign language. And so how do you help people with this? And let's talk about that a little bit. And what is AI and what is speech to text?
Sure, I would love to talk about that. And I'm just going to start out by saying that my background is I do not have a technology background. And so what I find with a lot of people is there's a lot of shame in not knowing some of these terms. It really is a new language, right? In the past decade, really the past 2 decades, but even in the past few years, there's just a new language and things are moving so quickly. Is that we find, I have found just in working with people that there's a lot of shame in not knowing. And so really AI, I find the best way to explain it, it stands for artificial intelligence. It's really just kind of a way of talking about how machines learn and can help us in our lives. So if you have a smartphone or a tablet, or if you've ever used Siri on your phone or Alexa somehow in your life, you are already using AI. You are using that artificial intelligence in your life to help you do something, even if it's to say, hey, Siri, what time is it? Hey, Siri, can you set a timer? Hey, Alexa, what's the weather going to be like today?
Hey, Google.
Right. Hey, Google. And my phone just came on because I just have my phone next to me, right? So it just came on. I got to turn that off. And in another term, speech to text, which, what is that? Is that something having to do with speech therapy, right? It's literally, if you've ever listened to an audiobook, or if you've ever had something read to you off of your phone or a tablet or a computer, that is, or speaking into a computer. So there's text to speech, where if you listened to a book and you have the words read aloud to you, that's text to speech. That's basically the text transforming into the spoken word. Speech to text is if you've ever held up your phone and said, hey, Waze, where am I going? Or, when you're asking a question. So it's basically using your voice and turning that into text. Or even if you're, shall I say, driving, if you've ever sent a text message when you're driving, it's you're using your voice that turns it into language that can send it somewhere, whether it's an email or a text.
And I have to say, it's gotten so much better.
Yes.
I can remember many years ago, because I do a lot of writing. I have clients that I write their blogs and things like that. And sitting there typing was really killing my shoulders and my neck.
Mm-hmm.
So years ago, I got I think it was called Dragon speech.
Yes.
Where I could speak and it would but it wasn't very good. I mean, it was okay, but I had to clean up a lot. It has gotten so much better. And I've noticed just with my phone, Google, I think part of it is that the system begins to learn your speech patterns.
Right. That's exactly right. And that's the artificial intelligence getting more intelligent. So the more it's used, the more it learns your speech patterns, vocabulary, what you're asking it, the better and better it is. So the more you use it, the more it gets tailor-made to you and to help you in your life. So absolutely. So it has gotten a lot better. And Dragon is still around. And there's some wonderful other apps. There's one called Otter AI. That's kind of like the animal otter, OTTER AI. Right. And it is something else that's also a speech to text. And then at the end of it, you get a transcript. So if you're ever in a meeting, right, and you can't hear everything or you want to document something, you could use that and then have a transcript of the whole thing afterwards. So it has gotten much, much better. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, when I first tried Dragon, I want to say it was early 2000, I mean, I'm sure it has gotten so much better, just like all of them have. But it's amazing, and it can be used for so many different purposes. And just having, like you said, Alexis or Siri or hey Google, we've got the Google Nest in our house, saying, hey, what's the weather? Do I need to wear a coat? Is it windy outside? All of these things. I mean, I think that's so beneficial for a senior that's stuck in the house, and maybe they're sitting there, maybe they're alone, maybe they don't have anybody mm-hmm. that they live with. And, it actually feels as if you're talking to a person sometimes. My husband has gotten tickled with some of the things he can get it to do. He tells Google good night, and Google knows to turn on the music of nature sounds because he likes that.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets the biggest kick out of that. So yeah, it's great. It's great. So let's talk about, we'll roll on into social isolation because that has been a biggie this past year. So many people have been more isolated than ever before. And for a lot of our people with disabilities and a lot of our aging population, isolation is something they may deal with on a regular basis anyway, but it's been taken to a whole new level this past year, and it's affected so many other people. So talk to me about how technology can help. We talked about the Series and the Alexis, but what else can technology do to help with that social isolation?
So such a great point. And I'll just say, this past year has been so difficult for so many people. But what I can also say is before the pandemic, well, people now have experienced, if they've never experienced before, what social isolation can do to you. There's a statistic out there with research that says social isolation is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, right? It is detrimental to health.
It is.
And so we've all experienced some of that now, but people with disabilities and many seniors and caregivers experienced this way before COVID. This is their regular life, many of us, before COVID. And so now I think it's such an opportunity. It's such a new time for people to understand how technology can be helpful during this time, right? For many, it's been a lifeline of even having groceries delivered or, right? So
Exactly.
if you never had to do that before.
Huge. Oh gosh, that's huge.
Right. So
Groceries, medicine,
groceries, pharmacy deliveries,
restaurants, being able to order from your favorite restaurant and have it delivered. That's huge.
Right. So again, even the technologies that we talked about before, just having a device and having the opportunity to connect in new ways. What we found is just that if people had never used FaceTime before or Skype or even something called Google Duo, which is basically just a way to connect through video conferencing software. It's basically just super, super easy to do. And many people have discovered Zoom, although Zoom has been around for a while, but this allowed many people to stay employed. It allowed people to connect and continue to have their meetings. It was able for people to still stay connected with their favorite book clubs, for example. And so just something as simple as being able to FaceTime your loved one if you cannot see them in person. So I think it kind of pushed a lot of people to experiment and try new things and get over that hump or try to find help if they didn't know how to do it. And again, at the beginning, I think for many it was a struggle. It's still a struggle because there are still barriers, but it just very simple solutions can have a very powerful effect on helping people connect and feel that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm. And getting help, that's one of the things that BridgingApps does, right? You help people, you teach them how to use some of this technology.
Absolutely. So before COVID, we have in-person services. We're located here in the greater Houston area, so we see people. But since COVID, we've just shifted everything to virtual. But we were doing a lot of virtual before. So if you have a telephone and you need us to talk you through something, we can do that. We did a lot of initial setups of how you set up FaceTime or Skype and how you do that. We spend a lot of time doing our reviews. So lots of applications, lots of apps come out for both Apple products and Google Play. So for Android devices come out all the time, right? It's impossible to keep up with. And so we try to do our best to look at the new things that are coming out. We trial them. We work with people with disabilities and do a lot of app reviews and then push that information out to help somebody. So for example, on Christmas Day, can you guess what the most watched video on our YouTube channel was? Just take a guess. FaceTime.
FaceTime. Oh, yeah.
Right. And so again, for many people around the holidays who maybe just made that decision, we're going to be safe. We're going to stay in our own pod. We're going to stay in our own house, but we want to include everybody in our family.
How do we do that?
We could do that, and maybe they hadn't done it yet. And so that video spiked that day of how to set it up and what it is and how to do it. So I just thought that was really interesting.
That is. So you have all kinds of videos on how to set up different things like that?
We do. And we're trying to do more videos, just short how-to videos for different apps that are coming out. And for example, something like, we've already talked a little bit about Zoom, right? So Zoom is a video conferencing app, but you can also use it on a desktop or a laptop computer. But there are other ones out there as well. And so there have been a lot of changes, a lot of updates for those types of apps. And so when their changes are made, or there's a big new update coming out, for example, with Zoom, they've committed to later this year to include automatic captioning, which is super helpful, going to be super helpful. So let's say you're in a meeting and you are either hard of hearing or you're in a really noisy environment. Automatic captions, the words will pop up at the bottom of the screen. And so that's a wonderful new update that's coming. And so we would put that on our website in addition to the app review that we already have there. So that's just one example. We try to, for the more popular ones, the ones that are really relevant to our community of connecting with each other, of how people can leverage it in their lives and help enhance their lives to connect with others. That would be one that we keep up with quite a bit.
That is something that I've always said. I wish it would have been available and accessible when my parents were alive. They would have loved, because not all of their children lived in town. I lived 4.5 hours away. My sister did too. We were kind of spread out. And then they had siblings as well that they would have loved to have been able to connect with and be able to see them face to face. It would have made such a difference. I also know a lot of people who during the pandemic were really stressed out because mom or dad or somebody they loved was in a memory care facility, and suddenly it was locked down and they could not go and see them. And maybe it wasn't as perfect as being in person. You couldn't touch the person, but at least they could see their face. They could see that they were okay. And the person, that was in the facility could see them. So it just made such a difference. And family reunions. We had a family reunion on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
And it was great. I mean, from California to Washington, D.C., we had them spread out across the country. And it was fun. We hadn't gotten together in I don't know when, because everybody was so spread out. So having that big family reunion, that was kind of neat. And it was kind of bittersweet because just a few short weeks later, one of the members died suddenly. Not expected. And it was a younger person. But so it was really awesome that we have that. We have a recording of it. And we have that. So yeah, lots of different things. So let's talk about some mobile apps that maybe might be helpful with caregiving.
Right. So that is such a huge area. We have a ton of different apps and resources, and caregiving, really can range, from everything to what we already talked about, like connecting with other people. You as a caregiver, many caregivers who are out there, that's caring for yourself and wanting to connect with other people because it's hard, right? 24/7 is hard, or whatever caregiving you are doing with a loved one, right? You connecting with other people is really important. So we talked about an app, Google Duo. We talked about FaceTime and Skype. Other caregiving apps, which may come to mind that many people think of, are things like medication management, right? Pharmacy. So we talked about pharmacy deliveries, right? And so for the very first time, You may have had to do a curbside pickup, or maybe even if you're lucky enough that your pharmacy delivered, that you would do all that through an application. And there are lots of different applications for that. Pillboxy is an app that is really amazing. It's been around for several years. And one reason why I like it a lot, and lots of caregivers like it, is it just does one thing. It just focuses on medication. It has a picture of your pill. You take pictures of it. You take a picture of your bottle. You put in all the information about when you're taking medication, when you can put multiple people in it. So if it's for yourself and maybe a loved one that you're caring for, you can actually see it, what it looks like. So it's actual photographs, or there are just lots of options for you to customize in it, but it just does one thing. For other caregivers, especially for families who are maybe pitching in together and helping to care for a loved one, whether it's in the home or close by or even remotely, right? Technology can connect people in a way to help with different caregiving tasks. For example, there was a wonderful app called CareZone, CareZone. You could access it through a laptop or a desktop, but it was also a mobile app. Well, CareZone is just amazing. And it was so amazing that it got purchased by Walmart.
Wow. What is it called, CareZone?
Nope. It's called Walmart Wellness.
Okay.
So in December,
ready to put CareZone up. So I want.
yeah. So Walmart Wellness. So basically, and so people have different feelings about, apps being purchased by large corporations. But the reality is, for many, many apps, if there are only one or two apps that a developer has developed, sometimes it's just not sustainable, and they go bankrupt, right? We've seen many apps that are beloved in the last 10 years that just can't make it, right? That it's just, they don't have it's just not sustainable. So we were surprised, but also really excited that Walmart did purchase CareZone. And so it's called Walmart Wellness. And within that app, it's just a whole full range of different options that you can use to help caregive for yourself or for someone else. So there's a whole section where you can put medications and reminders and notifications for that. You can scan in your insurance card. You can add different family members or friends to help with different caregiving tasks, right? You can assign things. You can there's a little journal feature where, let's say you're sharing caregiving responsibilities, and someone is coming in or going to be dropping off food for somebody. You can put different symptoms or how alert that person was that day, for example, so that if the person has memory issues, they can't necessarily tell themselves, what they need, but all that information is documented so that you, as a supporting person, as a caregiver, can go in and see, oh, okay, well, she didn't remember this today, but here's what she needs today, for example. So just lots of different features. So sometimes a full range app is way too much for people. But the beauty of it is you can only use that one section that you like. But for many families who are all pitching in, or families and friends who are pitching in, it's just a lifesaver. Let's say somebody's going out of town. Well, somebody else can take over, and all the information about all the medications, the doctors, the appointments, everything is there. And so it's stored, it's safe, and you control all that information. You control if somebody gets let into that circle of help or is not. Mm-hmm. So those are just a couple examples. Walmart Wellness, medication apps like Pillboxy. There's another one called Backpack Health, where you can store some of your medical information to always have it with you on your phone. So let's say you're in the middle of that telehealth appointment, or you're going to the doctor and you forgot the allergies that you have to a certain medication. You always have that information with you. It's not the piece of paper that you forgot at home. It's something that you can keep with you that is safe and secure and can help you manage your own care, manage somebody else's care. But that's another favorite app that was purchased by a company. So we think it's going to be around for a while. It's super helpful.
Good. So there's a lot, and you can help people find those apps based on what their needs are. can do that. So
absolutely. And people can search for themselves. So that's, if you go to Bridging Apps, we have a database of about 3,000 different types of apps for Apple and Android. You just simply type in caregiver, or you could type in medication, or type in whatever you want. And that's really the purpose, is one person may feel super comfortable with something like Walmart Wellness, and somebody else might just want, just a medication management, or a how do I reduce my own stress, right? A lot of stress relief, a lot of apps around that.
Yes, yes. So we've got all kinds of wonderful technology out there that is helpful. How about just some apps for fun and pleasure? I mean, we've got to have fun and pleasure too, right?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite.
I mean, that's the spice of life.
It is. And, I think probably one of the most popular app lists we have, when people are like, I don't even know the questions to ask. I don't even know what I'm looking for. But one of the most kind of browsed lists and most popular lists that we share a lot is about ebooks, right? So what's an ebook app, right? An ebook, E just stands for electronic. So again, back to the example of if you've ever listened to an audiobook, or if you own a Kindle and ever read anything electronically, it means electronic book. Mm-hmm. And so lots of ebook apps like the Kindle app is out there. And also many people don't realize that there are several apps that if you have a library card, that there are library apps where you can borrow all kinds of books just like you would in person, that you can download to your device free.
I didn't know that.
And that is so huge because audiobooks, for example, are quite expensive.
Yes, very.
Right. So a couple of these apps, one of them is called Overdrive, Overdrive, Overdrive. And one of its companion apps that I think is a little bit easier to use is called Libby, Libby. And so again, if you have a library card, and even if you don't have a library card, let's say you haven't been to your library in a couple of years, there are thousands and thousands of libraries that you can access through this. And many libraries, including Houston, you can actually call and have someone help you get a library card over the phone. And then you'd have that library card number that you would put into that app, and you'd be able to start downloading and reading and listening to books. So those are two. So reading is huge, right? Whether you're listening to a book, because that is really comforting. That is recreation. Lots of people love that.
And a lot of seniors have poor vision.
Mm-hmm.
Their vision is not allowing them to read, and they miss out on that. And they're not able to really enjoy maybe TV shows as well. But if they can get it on audio, what a difference that would make.
Right, exactly. One of my own family members, just during the pandemic, lost most of her vision. And that was one of her biggest pleasures, gardening and reading. And so we got her set up on a couple of different services. She had already used a Kindle, but Kindle became a little bit more difficult for her to use without help. And so we got her set up with a service called Bard, B-A-R-D. And you can Google that. You can find information about that on our website as well. But that's a national program where you get books that can be downloaded to this app, and you can listen to all types of books free of charge, especially if you have some kind of visual impairment, visual disability. But even some of the basic library apps we put on for her, and she is just never without books now. I mean, she goes through them, dozens per week, right? And once you have that on there, then and the more you use it, the easier it becomes. And if you've ever, remember with cassette tapes or CDs, right? You use a CD player, and the little triangle means play. The little square means stop, right? Those apps are set up very similarly, where it's recognizable what the settings look like. Mm-hmm. So with just a little bit of practice, many people are intimidated by that process of shifting that way. But once, with a little bit of setup and a little bit of perseverance, it can really be life-changing for somebody. So library books are huge.
That's great. Great.
Yeah,
So-
and games. I would say games.
Yeah.
Scrabble, Words with Friends. If you've never played any of those games, it's another way to stay in touch with people.
It's a good social connection. Yes.
It's a good social
absolutely.
connection. You can send little text messages in with Words with Friends. There are card games that you can play. There are lots of, and many people may or may not have tried this during the pandemic, but going on virtual field trips to different places, lots of museums, lots of places around the world have live cams. So they have cameras set up in different zoos and different museums where you can, and many organizations have invested a lot in this, especially in the past year where maybe they hadn't before. So, being at home, maybe whether it's because you're a caregiver or because of the pandemic, there are lots of ways to engage with the world that maybe you hadn't thought of before.
You can do an exercise class. There's lots of exercise classes, yoga, tai chi, chair massage, chair yoga, all of the different types of exercise classes out there. So that's amazing. And good. So we are getting towards the end here. So I want to make sure we get in some other things. There are, one of the big concerns with adult children who have aging parents is I want to make sure that they're safe. And apps and tools are helping to do that. So talk to us a little bit about some apps and tools that are helping seniors to be safe in their own home.
That's right. This is just a huge area, a huge explosion of solutions, and it really is overwhelming. But so I like to start with really simple things. Again, back to the example of some things like Alexa, right? Or if you have an Echo Dot, or just basically how we can talk about them is like a voice assistant in your home. So lots of people have just the little Echo Dots that are not that expensive. And again, they can be, one account can be created, and then different activities can be put on that. For example, shopping lists, right? So even people, or calling somebody, right? You can set up Alexa to have voice calls come straight to it, where they don't even have to answer, pick up a phone or dial a number or anything. That can be done through those assistants. And so sometimes, especially with people who have memory issues, the simpler, the better. Right. That's one very simple way to set something up in someone's house and just have multiple people be able to call in and check on somebody. Mm-hmm. There are lots of research going on now with fall detection. It's not exactly perfect, but there are more and more solutions out there that people are using. Something that's very popular among seniors and older adults is, who likes to wear a life alert around their neck, right? Sometimes it's just not cool. It's embarrassing. So the good news is they're making all kinds of really cool, beautiful, stylish solutions for that. And many of them are watches, right? So whether it's the Apple Watch or other watches that can go around your wrist, there's one made by a company called Unali Wear. It's UNALI Wear, WEAR. And that has all kinds of sensors in it. It also monitors things. And again, depending on, you being the person who's in charge of this information, you can share it with others or just keep it to yourself and maybe put people as emergency contacts where you can use that technology. You can also, there are services that are set up that work with an app where you can basically touch a button if you're in trouble and you fall. That again, typically those are paid services. They're not free, but again, other people can be listed through the app, where then me, maybe as a caregiver who's not living with the person, could get an alert that something is going on. And the apps that I talked about earlier too, again, setting up and taking the time to maybe set up some of these apps like Walmart Wellness or Backpack Health, where you're putting in a lot of the medical information or health information that you'd have at your fingertips in case something happened, is really key. Because when you're panicking, if there's a crisis, if something is going on, sometimes that prevents you from being able to answer basic questions. And I'm laughing because I'm speaking from experience. I've been in this position where I was so glad just to pull up my phone and just, go like this, because I couldn't necessarily get out the insurance card at that point or remember key information. But if you, with a little bit of planning and putting some of that information that's where you're sharing it with families, you're sharing it with friends in that circle of care beforehand on the front end, that can do wonders. But if you don't have those conversations, that can't be solved by technology.
Yes, yes. So, one of the things too that comes to my mind is Ring.
Yes.
That's a huge solution. I think about my parents, and they had a little sitting room in their back bedroom, and they would watch TV. And if somebody would come to the door, sometimes they didn't even hear us, We'd be banging on the door, ringing the doorbell, and they didn't hear us because they had the TV up really loud, and they were watching it, and they were enthralled in the show. And so having something like that where it's sitting on the counter and it pops up with my picture, so they know who's there. They know it's not just the UPS man delivering. Or maybe they do know, okay, it's the UPS man, I can go get that package later. They don't feel like they have to jump up and run all the time to the door, because that's a lot of times when seniors fall, when they jump up to run to go take care of something, and they, have an accident. So, there's just so many out there, and I love this. I love that we're talking about this. Thank you again for that. So let's just talk before we go a little bit more about how your organization, BridgingApps, and I'm sorry, that should have been all one word, helps seniors use technology.
So BridgingApps, the majority of the information of how we help seniors, older adults, caregivers is by the information that we trial ourselves. We trial a lot of the apps. We trial different solutions. We have an assistive technology lab here in the greater Houston area. And so we try out a lot of the stuff before we put it on our website. And we also have people in different professions, right? We have speech therapists, occupational therapists, we have clinicians, so psychologists, doctors, teachers, just all different types of professionals who are using the technology in their own profession. And so we ask them to do the reviews for us. So the information that we push out on both the website, in a newsletter that we have, in social media, if you don't like to go to websites, but you're on Facebook or Instagram, we push out on all those channels so people can, get the information in different ways, in the way that they want it. So that is one way. Is doing a lot of app reviews and helping people sort through the thousands of apps that come out every day. So, it's overwhelming. And sometimes even coming to the website, bridgingapps.org, our database that I mentioned that we manage has about 3,000 apps on any given day. It changes based on, apps go away, as I mentioned, and apps come out, and then we add them. But we view the website really as a shortcut rather than Google searching all day, as a shortcut to find high quality apps that are helpful for certain things. And we spend a lot of time, as I mentioned, putting them into lists for different things. So there's a whole section on our website. So if you go to bridgingapps.org, at the very top, you're going to see something called communities. And in the drop down on communities, there's a whole section called seniors and caregivers. And on that page are lists and lists of different types of apps for like brain health and relaxing and fun, like we were just talking about, or rehab. Let's say you have an accident, you in a rehab, and you want to do some things at home. So lots of different app lists that are there, lots of different video clips. And basically we create these very short videos that are how-to videos and how to do some very basic things that every single one of those videos was asked by a client. Right. So we made the video pretty much for that client or for that small group, and we just put it up on our channel. But you'll find that in the section 2 under training and resources. So we're adding to that all the time. During in-person, as I said, around the Houston, in Houston, we have an assistive technology lab. So when we're back to in-person, We do trainings in this lab. We do small trainings where you can come in and see different apps that are possible, how to use them, that we have loaded on a cart full of devices in our lab. We also have traditional, what I call kind of traditional assistive technology. So everything from, you mentioned vision. We talked a little bit about vision. Everything from digital magnifiers, right, to just carry in your purse, right? Small little digital magnifiers that can help you. We can show you how to use, if you have a smartphone, how to use the built-in magnifier on your smartphone at the touch of a button. I mean, that's super helpful.
I didn't know about that.
Right, super helpful. Little features that, you really do have a supercomputer in your pocket if you're using a smartphone with many, many things that you probably didn't know you already have. And then other technologies you mentioned, Dragon Dictation. So we've got the professional version of Dragon Dictation. You can try all these things out free. We used to have weekly, what we call family nights, where you don't have to make an appointment. You just show up and we can just show you stuff. Where again, if you don't know what you don't know. So having different things out, and maybe you're becoming, you're having a little bit of trouble hearing, but you're like, I do not want hearing aids. I am not the hearing aid person yet. Or I just need a little bit of amplification. We have some things that we can show you, but also some separate things, technologies that you can say, oh, I didn't even know that existed. And at least it's a starting point where you're not running out, spending a lot of money buying stuff that may not do what you think you want it to do. And so that's kind of the beauty of the in-person, if you're in the Houston area, where you can come and explore technology.
Love it. I love it.
So two different ways. We're hoping to get back to normal at some point in 2021. I'm super optimistic. But either way, people can contact us. We've done a ton of virtual stuff this last year. We're happy to engage.
That you have.
Yes, we are.
Even more so because people were needing it and wanting it, because they didn't have another option.
Right.
In person wasn't an option. So, Christian, I thank you so much for being here. This has just been delightful. You've given us so much information and help. And I know everybody is just really interested in knowing more about this. We are having a senior conference next Friday, March the 12th. If you haven't registered for it yet, it is free. The address is senior-conference.com. And one of our speakers is going to be Amy Fuchs?
Fuchs, that's right.
Amy Fuchs from BridgingApps. And she's going to be doing a full program, and you'll be able to ask her questions too. So do join us for that. And we'll have some other great speakers as well. We've got 4 wonderful speakers, and then we've got something different that we're doing. We're going to be having what we call conversation circles. These conversation circles will be opportunities for you to go in and talk to experts in the field of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or senior living or just different things, and talk in a private small group. So they won't be recorded, in other words, like the talks will be. So there's lots of opportunities. Join us at theseniorconference.com. And again, Christian, thank you for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. And everybody, look forward to seeing you next week on the Life After 50 show.
Thanks for joining us on the Life After 50 show, where we help you navigate the second half of your life. Join us every Wednesday live on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And